welcome back to Book Club Preview. Today we're looking at the life of Pi, finally getting to part 2 where action really starts happening. And this is about the Pacific Ocean. We're looking at chapter 37 through 42. Now in this chapter, it starts off with the big shocker. The boat that they've been traveling on is sinking. We find that Pi is already on a lifeboat. And he's looking out and he sees Richard Parker. Okay, we still don't know who or what Richard Parker is, but he sees Richard Parker out there and he's like, Richard Parker, come on, over here. And then Richard Parker starts to change, look over where the lifeboat is, and starts to kind of slowly move that way, but he kind of starts giving up, and Pi's blowing a whistle. And then finally, Richard Parker starts moving towards the lifeboat. And this is pretty dramatic as Pi's like calling out to Richard Parker, throwing a life buoy, trying to get an oar and kind of move the boat closer to Richard Parker. And as Pi is just freaking out, Richard Parker gets closer. And then Pi comes to his senses. And he realizes, what am I doing? I am on a lifeboat and I'm trying to save a 450-pound Bengal tiger to join this lifeboat with me. And then he changes his mind. He's like, no, Richard Parker, go away. And he tries to move the boat the opposite direction, but all he does is kind of spin it. He tries to take the oar and to hit Richard Parker to get him to go off the boat, which doesn't help at all. He actually drops the oar, and this lion grabs the side of the boat, leaps out of the lion. This tiger leaps onto the boat, and Pi looks at the tiger and jumps off the boat into the water, into the storm. And wow, what an opener for part 2. It goes back to the past a little bit, maybe about 5-10 minutes before, and Pi just starts talking about the trip. Okay, before this happened, they were traveling, they were in India, so they're going east along Asia to like the Philippines or Vietnam and the Philippines. And they stop in the Philippines, I believe, because they want to do some routine engine check, which means there's a problem with the engines and they needed to check it out. Well, Revy, he's exploring the engine part area because he likes going on adventures. And Revy's like, I think something's wrong with the engines. Pi doesn't care. He's on top of the deck, seeing the animals working and feeding. There's a bunch of animals on the boat. And it happens to one night, Pi's sleeping. He hears this sound, and for some reason he wakes up, tries to wake up his brother. His brother doesn't want to be woken up. He goes out on top to the deck, and there's a storm. In this case, a beautiful, majestic storm. The waves are crashing. The wind is howling. There might even be some lightning, and he's just holding on, and he's safe on the boat. He can close the door, and the storm is gone. He's just looking out. He didn't even know it was nighttime, that there was a storm. But then he realizes, man, I'm holding onto this grip, but why am I sideways? He looks to the side, and instead of just seeing water, he sees the side of the boat. The boat is listing. It's turning, and he realizes, oh, something must be wrong. I think there's a big explosion. There's an explosion at some point in time. He tries to turn around and he opens up the door to go back to his family, and where he left is full of water. And so he can't go back to his family. So then he goes to the captain, and there's no captain. Where's the captain? He finds 2 sailors, and the 2 sailors tell him something, put a life jacket on him, give him a whistle. Then they pick him up and they throw him over the side of the boat. Oh man, something is wrong. He lands on top of a lifeboat. Woo! Poof! About 40 feet below, he says. He lands on this tarp of this lifeboat, and he's very lucky because he's saved. After he's sitting there trying to figure out what's going on, a zebra jumps off the boat, and it's going towards the lifeboat. It doesn't hit the tarp, which provides a bounce. It hits the wooden part, and crash! It just lands on the boat, and it goes, makes some crazy sound. I don't know. You read it yourself. You tell me what that sound is. And then the lifeboat snaps the ropes and it falls down into the ocean. I think that's the lifeboat. Okay, so they're in the ocean. Now, the lifeboat is in the ocean. We learn that Richard Parker came on. And so now it's back to the present, okay? Or at least the present in the story, where chapter 37 is. So Pi jumped off the boat. He's in a storm. He's in the water. And he goes to the life buoy that he actually threw to Richard Parker. He gets on the life buoy. He's in the storm. And he's like... in this crazy waves that are coming on. He ends up pulling himself close to the boat. But he doesn't want to get inside because there's a tiger in there. But there are fins of sharks swimming in the water. He's freaked out. I'd be freaked out too. He takes the oar that he lost before and he puts it in the boat, and it kind of pulls its weight on the tarp, so it kind of makes a pillar. He puts the life ring on the boat, and then he sits inside the life ring. So he's out of the water, maybe a feet, 2 feet, or 3 feet, depending on the waves, and he's just holding on to the life buoy and the pole for, I guess, hours until morning. He's just stuck on there. In the morning time, he kind of realizes that, man, I need to get out of the water. I need to get on the boat or I'm going to die. My muscles can't handle this. So he starts to slowly climb onto the boat. He's deathly afraid of Richard Parker, who might come out and kill him at any moment. He's thinking, man, the zebra's probably already dead. He has a lot of fear, but he ends up getting onto the boat and he sees the zebra's alive. Oh, okay, that's cool. I guess Richard Parker hadn't killed a zebra. That's interesting. The zebra's legs are bent backwards, so it's not going anywhere. It's going to die soon, and it looks like crazy. But it's still alive. And as he's climbing more onto the boat, because he actually wants to see if he can find any other boats or any other people, survivors. And while he's there, he sees one of the hyenas. So he realizes, oh my goodness, those sailors that threw me onto the boat weren't trying to save me. They were trying to get me to get rid of the hyena. And then they were either going to use me for the hyena to start killing me and eating me, or for me to scare away the hyena. And because of this hyena, I actually ended up being saved. Oh, and where's Richard Parker? That's probably why the zebra's not dead. This hyena maybe scared Richard Parker away. Maybe Richard Parker fell off during the night and he drowned. Oh, Richard Parker's gone. Okay. And he starts to relax and even falls asleep. At least I imagine he falls asleep. Because he's kind of having this dream and he kind of wakes up and he sees this image. What is it? Oh, it's the goddess. I can't remember what goddess is, of rebirth or fertility or harvest or something like that. It's one of the Hindu gods. And he looks, she's so beautiful. She's so magnificent. And she's coming closer and closer. He's like, oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. No, not spiders. Spiders. And he kind of wakes up. And he's kind of hallucinating. He's seeing things. It's the orangutan orange juice. Orangutan is that big kind of monkey or gorilla. And all over the orangutan are little black spiders. Black spiders are what they've been feeding some of the animals. So they had a whole bunch of these black spiders. But they had broken free. They're all over this net of bananas that's been floating. Black spiders everywhere. And they're crawling all over orange juice. And orange juice crawls onto the boat, falls down, and when he falls down, the bundle of bananas kind of flips over and starts to break apart. And so all the bananas start to sink, and all the spiders go, they drown in the water. And he grabs the net, which he says later becomes one of his most precious possessions. He doesn't grab any bananas, he's not thinking, but he grabs this net. And orange juice now joins the passengers on the boat. Some vocabulary. Okay. Dyspeptic. So in our story, so dyspeptic can be like indigestion, like having some stomach problems, but in the story, it's referring to like depression, sadness, as he's alone on this boat all by himself and he just feels this depression, this sadness. The next word we have here is pandemonium. Pandemonium is chaos, craziness. A ship breaking apart and sinking into the ocean would be like, wah! You can imagine. Ensconced is like shielded, protected, hidden. I can't remember what was ensconced. Maybe something on the boat, but maybe he was ensconced from the storm. He was protected and hidden while he's looking out and looking at the beauty before things get crazy and the boat is sinking. Flotsam is like ocean wreckage, like a boat that's breaking apart and wreckage. If you are a fan of The Little Mermaid, one of the eels' names is Flotsam, which is like wreckage. Fodder. Fodder is the, I typed good here, but food is the kind of cheap food for animals, but it can also refer to soldiers going into battle. So maybe you have like a front line of soldiers and you expect those guys to die first. They're the lowest quality maybe, or the cheapest soldiers. Or maybe they're actually soldiers you're paying for that aren't part of your own country. We call this fodder. Okay, you're just gonna die. We're just gonna give you away. And so it can be food, but can also be something worthless that you're letting get killed first. Convulsions. These are like uncontrollable shakes. Okay. Pi says that he thinks about those bananas sinking into the ocean that he didn't try to save. And he's going to get so angry at himself that he's actually going to start convulsing because of his mental stress. Probably because he's starving at the same time, so his body is shaking. But that's what he's referring to. That leaves us with our discussion question. What would you do if you found yourself on a sinking boat in the middle of the ocean? Okay, Pi doesn't even think for the first 10 minutes until maybe Richard Parker starts coming to him, and then he realizes, what am I doing? But the whole other time, he's just going on autopilot. I can't imagine what this would be like in a storm in the middle of the ocean and the boat starts sinking. What would you do? And of course, please make your own discussion question. That's all the time that we have for today. But thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Book Club Preview. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.